anything like that until AT&T Cellular comes back online. Don't even bother, because I can't access anything via MTSU. I don't have the two-factor authorization, and there's no other way to do it. It started a little bit yesterday, and then since 4 o'clock this morning, it sounds like some of you are also AT&T. It's also partially affecting Verizon, and T-Mobile have been in and out a little bit. Had one of my students in my previous class tell me she got a text from her mother saying over 1 million people without AT&T, okay? And that includes emergency services. So like cities that have AT&T, their 911's out. So just be forewarned. Have I already put up a quiz? Okay, I was completely blanking out on that. So I don't have to do that. I just wanted to make sure you were aware. All right, so we left off 1185, Act 1, Scene 1, and when you're done signing that, if you pick that, bring that up to me. Those of you here are going to get 2 or 3 points extra credit for being here. Around line 128, it looks like, okay? So, let's recap a little bit of what we've seen. Aegeus comes in, we hear Theseus and Hippolyta, they're planning for their wedding. Aegeus comes in, he's angry at his daughter, he wants his daughter to marry, he wants his daughter, Hermia, to marry Demetrius. Okay, this is what Aegeus wants. Hermia wants to marry Lysander. Meanwhile, Helena, so I'm going to put these arrows to indicate who they're in love with, so to speak. Helena loves Demetrius. Demetrius loves Hermia. Hermia and Lysander love each other. Okay? And we find out towards the end of that opening part, Helena loves Demetrius because before he even saw Hermia, he wooed her, he sang songs outside her window, he sent her flowers and cards and notes and poems and all that kind of stuff, okay? And Aegeus demands the Athenian law. Hermia either marries Demetrius or she dies, because he's her father, therefore she is property of his, and he could do with her as he pleases. The language he actually uses is to dispose of her as he wants, all right? Theseus modifies that slightly. He says, on the day of our wedding, his and Hippolyta's, Hermia has to answer I'll pick up around 117. He tells her, for you, fair Hermia, look, you arm yourself to fit your fancies to your father's will. Okay? Prepare yourself to fit your fancies, your desires, your imagination, your wants to your father's will. Her father's will is that she marry Demetrius. Okay? So that's her first option. Or else the law of Athens yields you up, he says, which by no means we may extenuate. That is, I can't bend the law of Athens. So, the law of Athens will yield her up, if she doesn't marry Demetrius, to what? To death or to a vow of single life. And he's talked about the vow of single life. She will become a forced nun to the goddess of chastity and virginity, to worship Diana, goddess of the moon. Those are your options. She has to give her answer the day of his wedding. All right? So, they all leave. Theseus, Hippolyta, and their followers all leave with Aegeus. Okay? Demetrius leaves, and Helena's not there yet. So we have left on the stage, beginning with 128 or so, Lysander and Hermia. And Lysander addresses Hermia and says, why are you so pale? How now, my love, why is your cheek so pale? How chance the roses there to fade so fast. So, implying she's got a pale complexion, and she had been full of blush before, but now she's gone like deathly white. Why? She says, be like for want of rain, which I could well beteen them from the tempest of my eyes. She's about to cry. She wants to marry him, and she's being denied that. She's going to have, the language I used with my other two classes is, for her to marry Demetrius is akin to what? She doesn't love him. She's already said that means what she calls yielding up her virgin patent, her virginity. It's forced rape. Okay? There's no love involved. So, Lysander says, what's going on here? For aught that I could ever read, this is line 132. For aught that I could ever read, could ever hear by tale or history, the course of true love never did run smooth. Okay? For aught that I could ever read, could ever hear by tale or history, that is, for all, for everything that I ever read, or ever heard via story, or ever heard in a history, he says, course of true love never did run smooth. So what does he mean by that? The tale of love is always one of woe. It's always one of sorrow. In other words, he is saying, throughout history, all tales of love involve a rocky road. It's never easy. It's never boy meets girl, girl meets boy, and everything's wonderful. Okay? Romeo and Juliet, Lancelot and Guinevere, Tristan and Isolde, Aeneas and Dido. These two characters we're going to see later on in the play, Pyramus and Thisbe. A guy wrote a book in the 1940s called Love in the Western World, where he argues the story of romantic love in the Western world is governed by, I should capitalize that, what's called Liebestod. Lieb, German, Tod, love death. Every tale of romantic love involves death on one part or the other. Okay? There's a third person involved, Lancelot and Guinevere, who's really Arthur Guinevere, and Lancelot's the interloper, the outsider, etc. There's always some kind of problem that leads to the death of one of the lovers. Okay? So, she says, O cross, too high to be enthralled too low. Your gloss tells you for O cross that means vexation. Vexation, like troublesome thing. That's one meaning. Another meaning is cross, like when you cross somebody. You get in their way. You become an obstacle. You become a challenge. All right? She says, O cross, O challenge, O obstacle, too high to be enthralled too low. And I think what she means by that is she's saying she is too high to be enthralled, to be made a slave to Demetrius. She's saying she's above Demetrius. Okay? Or else misgrafted in respect of years. That is, that there's an age difference. Now, she might mean that in these tales of love, that it's not an even pairing. And then when Lysander replies, following that, he could be saying, it's not necessarily even in a social status. Maybe there's a difference in the lovers in age. Okay? Oh, spite, to be engaged too young. Just go away. Go away. Oh, spite, to be engaged too young, or else it stood upon the choice of friends. In other words, you got engaged too early, you were set up by friends, the whole 9 yards. So, he goes on. Now, Hermia, line 150. If then true lovers have been ever crossed. Notice she poses this as a question. If true love has always been crossed, it's always been a challenge, it's always been difficult, then what? It stands as an edict in destiny. What's an edict? It's a ruling, it's a proclamation. She says, if it's always the case that true love is always hard and difficult, then that must be fate. Fate must have decreed all true love has got to overcome an obstacle. Okay? So if it's fate that this is always the case, she says, then let us teach our trial patience. Trial. What's a trial? Back in high school when I ran track, we had time trials, okay, where you have to do a certain time in order to qualify for a meet. It's that kind of thing. It's a proving, it's a testing. So if, she says, let us teach our proving ground, our testing patience. What's it mean to be patient? You're told to be patient. What are you being told to do? Wait? What else? What's involved in that waiting? Internally, what's involved in that waiting? Okay, what else? You're told you're going to get, a huge raise at work, but it's not happening now. It's going to happen, 6 months in the future. Internally, what are you thinking between now and then? Why can't it be now? I can use the money now. I need the money now. In other words, you're suffering waiting for that. The word patient is also used how? Break your leg, get really ill, and you become a patient in a medical sense. Why? Because you're suffering. They're connected. Okay, both those words are connected. Both those meanings are connected. So she says, we have to teach patience to the trial, to the undergoing this adversity. We've got to learn to, the verb we use is endure it. What's the difference between enduring something and enjoying something? I can look at every one of your faces right now. You are enduring this class. You don't want to be here. You're not enjoying, some of you might be. It's not pleasurable, right? There are a lot of other fun things you could be doing than this. That's what she's getting at. We have to teach this problem we've got to go through patience. Why? Because it is a customary cross. So you guys aren't the only ones in this boat. Every one of my classes, I think most of the students are in the same situation. It's customary. She means because lovers in the past had to undergo this, they patiently endured. Everybody has to do that. It is a custom. As due to love, that is this patience, as thoughts and dreams and sighs and wishes and tears. Because when you are in love, as she's talking about, your mind runs away on thoughts, you have dreams, you sigh, deep breath, cry maybe for the lover, you have wishes, there might be tears involved. All those things, she says, are poor fantasies, imaginations, followers. Those are the things that come from thinking a whole variety of things about your beloved. Okay? Lysander, a good persuasion. You're right, you've convinced me. We have to be patient. So what does he suggest? Let's go meet in the woods. Remember we've talked about there's two settings. There's Athens and the wood. And what do they represent? On one side you have Athens, on the other side you have the wood. Athens represents reason, rationality, law, order, morality, civilization, civilized culture. The wood, the exact opposite of all of those. It's irrational, okay? It goes against order. There's anarchy, there's chaos, all right? So, what is he suggesting they do? Let's leave Athens, because what does Athens require? The law. If she stays in 4 days, she has to surrender to the law, which either means death, forced nunnery, or forced rape, forced marriage. None of those are really her choices that she wants, right? He's suggesting what? We can run off to the wood, where he has a dowager aunt. Dowager means she's a widower, but she's rich. The guy she was married to was loaded. She doesn't have any children of her own. And she thinks of him, Lysander, as a son. They can run off to the wood, which is outside the jurisdiction of Athens. All right? Remember what I talked about? They rebuilt the theater, renamed it the Globe at the south bank of the Thames River. And when they did that, when Shakespeare's acting company did that, they did that so that it would be outside the jurisdiction of the mayor of London. He could not close it down. Okay? Running to the wood is an attempt at doing what? If this true love, course of true love never did run smooth, and it always had this adversity, this challenge, etc., he's saying, just like Oedipus attempted, we can do an end run around it. Why? We remove ourselves from this situation in Athens. We go here, and we can get married. And we can be happy the rest of our lives with very little adversity, very little trouble. All right? She says, what a good idea. So the course might not be quite smooth, but it'll be smoother than it would otherwise be. So, he says, meet me in the woods, a league outside the town. Helena comes in, okay? And Helena talks about Hermia's appearance. How she's called fair, she's called beautiful, how she draws Demetrius's eyes and all this kind of stuff. And she's like, why don't I? Okay? Hermia goes, I know, I frown at him, I say mean things to him, but he still loves me. Okay? So, 202, Hermia says, take comfort, he shall no more see my face. Lysander and I, we're leaving. We're ditching Athens. Okay? She says Athens seemed a paradise, but it's not. So Lysander tells her, 208 or so, tomorrow night we are going off to the wood and we're going to get married in the woods. That also implies, by the way, they will live in the woods for the rest of their lives. If they come back to Athens, what happens? The law is going to come down on them. Okay? So, he says, we're going to get married in the woods. So Hermia tells, beginning 2:16 or so, Hermia tells Helena, meet us there. Why? Why would she say, the place where you and I used to play as young girls and stuff, meet us there in the woods tomorrow night? Why would she do that? What's the purpose? Is she asking her to come to be her bridesmaid? No, the cultural thing they didn't have, ancient Greece. So why do this? Plot device. It's all it is. This is Shakespeare setting up part of the plot. Because he needs Helena to be there so that Helena can tell Demetrius to go meet in the wood, to go after Hermia and Lysander. Okay? Lysander and Demetrius leave, and Helena tells us what she's going to do. She tells us some things about Demetrius, how he dotes on Hermia and she dotes on him, etc. And then she says, I'm going to tell him, line 246, I'm going to tell him of Hermia's flight. So Demetrius tomorrow night will go off into the wood to follow Hermia and to try to stop Hermia and Lysander from getting married. And she says, he will pursue her, and for this intelligence, if I have thanks, it is a dear expense. That is, for my telling him, he may give me thanks. And for her, it's worth it. If he shows anything to her, it makes her happy. What's the worst thing Demetrius could do to Helena? It's what I did to my not yet wife before we were engaged. We dated for a while. This was in college. We dated for a while and broke up. Well, she dumped me. I mean, cut the heart out, sliced it up, whole 9 yards. 9 months. Just totally acted like I didn't exist. Okay? Kind of. I came back to school. We were going to school outside Chattanooga. I came back that summer. Came back early. This was year of the 1984 Summer Olympics. Came back early. We had soccer camp 2 weeks before school started and stuff. And she was living on campus or nearby. Totally ignored her. I would have nothing. I wouldn't even say hello. And that made her literally putty in my hands. Because after 2 weeks, she started coming up to me, and within a month and a half, we were engaged. Okay? Yeah, it's really weird. Okay? Anyways, that's kind of what she's hoping, I think. So, scene 2. So, this is the part of the plot. Scene 2, we're not going to talk much about. It's solely there for kind of a comedic break. Because that first scene, it's a little serious. You have a young girl being told you either have to marry a guy you don't love, or you're going to die, or you have to become a nun, okay? So what we see in scene 2 is we have a group of tradespeople, skilled craftsmen. They often get called either rustics, and I have no idea why they're called this, rude mechanicals, or clowns. Clowns doesn't work because we have a notion of what a clown is. The funny hair, the big nose, the floppy shoe. It's not what they are. Rustics just means they're uneducated. They've not been to school at all. They don't have any book learning. Does that mean they're stupid? No, they're not. Why? Because we're going to be told at the beginning of that scene and in the dramatis personae what their jobs are. We have Quince the carpenter, Snug the joiner, Bottom the weaver, Flute the bellows mender, Snout the tinker, and Starveling the tailor. Every one of these skills or crafts is skilled. You can't be a carpenter and be stupid. Why? There's a basic rule of carpentry. Measure twice, cut once. You've got to be able to measure something. You have to be able to know fractions. You've got to be able to do them in your mind. This is long before metric system. All right? And be able to put stuff together properly for carpenter. For the joiner, I think I mentioned the other day, a joiner is like a carpenter, works with wood, makes things like tables, has to understand how mortises and tenons fit together, how dovetails work. Okay? It's very skilled. You got to be smart about it. Every one of these trades is like that. But you don't have to know how to read. If someone tells you, I need a chair, it needs to be this size, a skilled joiner can build that without having to be able to open up a book. Okay? So, we're going to see in this scene, this group of skilled tradesmen, they've decided they're going to put on a play for the Duke and Queen's wedding. All right? We're told the play's name, line 9. the most lamentable comedy and most cruel death of Pyramus and Thisbe. That tells us everything we need to know about these folks. The most lamentable comedy, that's an oxymoron. That's a contradiction. Comedy here is meant comedy like we think of ordinary comedy. Funny, hilarious. Yet this is lamentable. Lamentable means it's sad, it's full of sorrow. How do you have something that's funny that yet is also full of sorrow? You don't. And most cruel death of Pyramus and Thisbe. Comedies don't involve death. Tragedies involve death. Pyramus and Thisbe are famous mythological lovers that everybody in Shakespeare's day knew the story of, even the uneducated. Why? Because they grew up hearing these stories. These are like Romeo and Juliet, literally. They opposing families, they fall in love, and they die for death, or they die for love. Okay. The important thing about this scene is we get introduced to one character in particular, Nick Bottom, the weaver. Okay. Why? Why is he important? Because he's a jackass. And later in the play, he's going to have a jackass's head put on his head. Or his head's going to be transformed into that of a jackass. If you're an actor and you're part of an acting company and you guys are going to put on Midsummer Night's Dream and you're a great comedic actor, this is the role you want. Because the person who portrays Bottom can go completely over the top. I mean, just no holds barred. Just overact as much as you want. It just makes the character funnier and funnier. I don't think he ever did, but I would have loved to have seen Robin Williams play the part of Bottom, because he would have just eaten it. Okay? So, what do we see here? Bottom gets the role of Pyramus. This is the lead. This is the romantic hero. He's described as a gallant hero who dies for death. Cool. Okay? Bottom says, I can do that. All right? Then he also wants to play Thisbe. Once he hears about the role of Thisbe. Thisbe is the female lover who will die for death. So he wants to play the lover and the beloved. That's going to be a bit difficult. Then later on, we find out there's a lion. He wants to play the lion too. There are people who have put on one-man shows, one-person shows if you want, of this play, where one actor does them all. They're kind of interesting. Bottom wants to do it all. Why? Because he's an idiot. Again, book learning wise, not when it comes to weaving cloth. Okay? So, Act 2. We're now in a wood near Athens. So Athens, Act 1, Scene 1. Athens is, not Act 1, Scene 1. All of Act 1 is set in Athens. When we get to Act 4, Scene 2, we go back to Athens from Act 4, Scene 2 to the end. Okay? In the wood, Act 2 through Act 4, Scene 1. So the whole middle part, and the middle part's the longest. 2 through 4:1 are the longest parts of the play. That's all said in the wood. Okay? Act 2, we're now in the wood. A fairy comes through one door at the back of the stage, and another fairy comes through another door at the back of the stage. And the character Puck says to the other fairy, "How now, spirit, whither wander you?" That is, where are you going? And that spirit, notice that fairy doesn't have a name, it's just fairy, says, "I'm going around looking around out here because the queen and all of her elves, that is her fairies, are going to come here shortly." Okay? Line 18. think it's 18. Puck tells this other fairy, the king doth keep his revels here tonight. Take heed the queen come not within his sight. For Oberon is passing fell in wrath, because that she as her attendant hath a lovely boy stolen from an Indian king. She ne'er had so sweet a changeling. So what does Puck tell us? Something we hadn't heard before. First of all, we get introduced to the fairies, right? If you remember the other day, I think I did it here, talked a little bit about the great chain of being, everything exists in this thing, you know, and you have the human realm, and above the human realm, just slightly, you have the fairies and you have the angels above them, okay? So they're above us. They're more powerful than us, they're stronger than us, and in that great chain of being, if one link starts to fall apart or have problems, everything beneath that is affected. Okay? The king and queen are not getting along. That affects everything below them. Not just in the fairy realm, but in our realm. In fact, as we're going to see when Oberon and Titania come in, Titania is going to tell us that the whole natural world is affected by their discord, by their not getting along. The winter isn't cold like it should be. The summer isn't cold. The summer is too hot, etc. Animals are dying. Discord in the human realm. Okay? So Puck tells us why they're not getting along. She has a changeling boy that the king wants. What's a changeling? This is English, popular folk belief. It was thought that if you and your wife have a child that is just ornery as all get out, misbehaves, doesn't listen, gets in trouble all the time, well, you could give as a reason for that, the child isn't yours. That child was switched at birth. Because your child, obviously, would not be like that. Your child would be good and behaved and disciplined and all that kind of stuff. And if it's not, well, it must be somebody else's. Well, the changeling idea is that the somebody else's is that child is an elf or fairy child. And the elves or fairies have switched one of their own with yours. So they take your child, take it back to the fairy realm, raise that child up to be one of two things, or maybe both of these: slave/servant and or sex slave. For some weird reason, a lot of medieval English literature, maybe not a lot, there are many medieval English tales about humans being taken to the other realm, the realm of the fairies, as sex slaves. Don't ask me why, okay? Maybe this is medieval versions of UFO abductions, okay? So, she has this changeling child that is this human child that she's adopted as one of her fairies. But the king wants that child to be a henchman, to grow up and be a servant in his followers. So they're not getting along. So the fairy says to Puck, I think you're Puck. And he says, yes, I am. When he says that, when the other fairy says that, and we get introduced to the name Puck, the idea of, and I'm going to put a particular phrase down. The idea of the Puck is not English. This kind of being, this kind of character goes back thousands of years to the group of people that would eventually spread across the globe and become the people that originally used the languages that become the languages of Russia, the Slavic languages, the languages of the subcontinent of India, like Hindi and Bengali and Pashtun, those languages, okay? The languages of Germany and France and Italy and the original Celts and Greek. It's what's called an Indo-European idea. This being the most probably popular kind of example, not quite the same but similar, around today because of Marvel movies, is Loki, the trickster god. Puck's a trickster. We also see him in things like the idea of a poltergeist. You know, a spirit where you put your keys somewhere, you know where you've put them, you have a mental map of it, and you go off and you do something else and you come back and they're not there. Well, you can blame that on the puck or a poltergeist, right? So Puck says, yes, I'm that guy, and he talks about the kinds of tricks he likes to play on women and other people. Oberon comes in, one door, Titania comes in, another door. And Oberon says, ill met by moonlight, proud Titania. What's he mean by ill met? What did Lysander tell Hermia about true love? The course of true love never did run smooth. They are ill met. It's not smooth. Okay? By moonlight, it's kind of irrelevant. That's just the time that they're meeting. Proud Titania. Almost like she's arrogant. And she says, what? Jealous, Oberon? Jealous of what? We don't know. Fairies skip hence. I have forsworn his bed and company. Notice two things. She lists the most important. Shut up. Talking in my ears. What has she forsworn? I said the most important one first. Bed. These are king and queen. They're married. They're not sleeping together. In fact, it's not just that they're just not sleeping together. She's forsworn his company. She doesn't want to be in the same space as he is, in the same room as he is. So this isn't just some little marital spat. This is like, call the lawyers, okay? Tarry, rash wanton, am not I thy lord? Your gloss tells you for wanton, headstrong creature. And it probably says that because of how he addresses her when she comes in. Proud Titania. She's pretty full of herself, is what that meaning kind of implies. But that, if you think of meanings of a word as having layers, and there's a surface layer and there's deeper layers, headstrong creature is a deeper layer. There's a much easier and simpler surface layer, okay? There's a Scottish philosopher, can't remember his first name. His last name's Occam. He came up with a philosophical way of trying to arrive at the truth of anything, the truth of a problem, the resolution to a problem. And ultimately, or essentially, his solution is, that solution is best which is easiest. The easiest solution to a problem is the best solution. The easiest answer to a question is the right answer. Okay? The easiest answer here is by looking at that word wanton and what it meant if it was commonly used during the Renaissance when Shakespeare's writing. A wanton woman, because she is a woman, albeit fairy, female if you want, a wanton woman was a whore, a slut, sexually just sleeping with anything that moved. So when he calls her rash, wanton, he's saying things about his wife. Okay? Not just that she's proud. Am not I thy Lord? What's he suggesting? You should obey me. Okay? And he brings up that Lord. Since I use this for my other two classes, I should do it for you too. comes from, the word Lord comes from these two words. I'll explain it in a minute. Lord and lady come from two Old English terms. Lord comes from hlavord, which is a slightly abbreviated form of hlafward. H-L-A-F-W-E-A-R-D, H-L-A-F-O-R-D. That's hlavord, hlavord. The H-L-A-F part, this is the word from which we get loaf, like a loaf of bread. The ord is an abbreviated part of this, which means guard, protector, like a warden. It's the protector of the loaf, okay? This lady, hlavedi, comes from H-L-E-F-E-D-I, comes from H-L-A-F-D-I-G-E, hlaf, that's that loaf again, and the dia, maid or girl, if I can write, girl, okay? Probably the one who kneads the loaf. Not N-E-E-D, but K-N-E-A, who makes the bread, okay? The protector of the bread and the bread maker. Why bread? Why bread be at the center? Well, without bread, meaning not just, flour, water, salt, and yeast, but sustenance. The thing that keeps a family alive, because without bread, you die. Without food, meat, etc., you die. So this is the protector of the central thing of a family, and this is the maker of that central thing. Notice, you got to have them both. You can't have one without the other. So when he says, am not I thy Lord? She says, well, then I must be thy lady. She's not talking about this, and he's not necessarily talking about this. He's saying, position of authority and power. She's saying, then I must be your equal. But, what's the but? She goes, I know why you're here. You're not here because of me. She says, I know that when thou hast stolen away from fairyland and in the shape of corn sat all day, playing on the pipes of corn and versing love to amorous Phillida. What? I know when thou hast stolen away from fairyland. Now, you can interpret that, I think, two ways. Stolen away from fairyland means left the realm, the place where we fairies live. It could also mean a much more specific. I know when you get up from our bed and go where? To the human realm and do what? You sit all day in the shape of corn, playing on pipes of corn, and sing love to amorous Phillida. Corn and Phillida, your gloss tells you, these are the names of characters in what's called pastoral poetry. Pastoral poetry is poetry set out in the fields or possibly in the woods. Okay? Corn is a type. Think of when I was talking about type with the minister's black veil and stuff. Is a type. He's a figure of the uncultured, unlettered youth who works on the farm or works on the fields, tends the sheep, tends the flocks, plows the ground. Okay? And Phillida is the uncultured, unlettered girl who milks the cows, gathers the eggs from chickens and such. So this is a young man and a young woman out there away from the city who do what? Who love each other. What has she just said? I know when you steal away from fairyland or the bed and go off to make love verbally, and maybe the other way, with the common country wench. Okay? So, how lordly, behavior-wise, is he with her, Titania, his lady? And then she asks, why are you here? But then she answers that question. I know why you're here. Because the bouncing Amazon, Hippolyta, is getting married to Theseus. What's her implication? You're here for Hippolyta. You're here because you love Hippolyta. And he says, how canst thou thus for shame? How dare you speak of my credit with Hippolyta? What's credit mean? It's not like credit like a credit card or going in having good credit. Credit means belief. For my credit with Hippolyta, that means her belief and trust of me when I know your love to Theseus. How dare you bring up my relationship with Hippolyta when I know about you and Theseus? And he gives examples. And your gloss tells you who these people are. And they're women that largely Theseus raped, ravished, took advantage of. And name, Oberon is suggesting what? He got out of these sticky situations because of Titania. Because of her love for him. Okay? Lots of problems in this relationship, in other words. And she says, these are the forgeries of jealousy. You're not really jealous. No. And she goes on and talks about all the problems that are occurring in the world because of their discord, because of their lack of harmony. Okay? Big, long speech. Spring, summer, chiding autumn, angry winter, change. The whole world has gone cockeyed. And she says, line 117, we are their parents and original. That is, we are the parents of all these problems. We are the original of all these problems. It's like all these problems down here, the original idea, we're the source. They're the shadows. Remember I talked about Plato's cave? The allegory cave with Oedipus? I think I mentioned it. So, Oberon says, then fix it. Do you amend it? You can stop all these problems in the human world and in the natural world. How? Why are you crossing? There's that verb. We saw it already with the crossed lovers. Why are you crossing me? Why are you opposing me? Just give me the little boy and everything will be great. She says, your fairyland buys not the child of me. Nope. Not giving him up. Why? His mother, she says, was a votress of my order. You got a gloss down there. She'd taken a vow to serve me. The mother died. The implication is the mother died in childbirth. And when the mother died, because she vowed to serve Titania, Titania took the child and raised him as one of her own fairies. Okay? So Oberon says that she finishes, I took the child for his mother's sake. It's her way of honoring the boy's mother. Okay? How long are you going to stay in the wood? How long are you sticking around here? Till the wedding day. Give me the boy and I'll go with you. She goes, not for your fairy kingdom. I wouldn't exchange this one child for your entire kingdom. Titania and her followers all leave. Oberon, go thy way. Thou shalt not from this grove till I torment thee for this injury. Ooh, I'm going to get payback. So he tells Puck to come forward, and Puck does. And he tells Puck to go find a flower. Okay? Talks about how Cupid took aim with his arrow, shot his arrow that if it hits you, you fall in love. And the arrow missed its target, landed in this flower, disgorged its power into the flower, so that now that flower has a power to make someone fall in love. Go bring me that flower. He tells us it's called love and idleness, which your gloss tells you is the pansy. Okay? And he tells us what he's going to do. He says, that flower, when it is squeezed and juice falls into the eyes of someone, that person will fall madly, wildly in love with the next thing they see. Okay? Bring it to me. He does, he says. I'm going to put this on to Tanya's eyes so that when she wakes up, the next thing she sees, whether 180, be it on lion, bear, or wolf, or bull, on meddling monkey, or on busy ape, she shall pursue it with the soul of love. Notice, everything he's just named is what? It's an animal. Angels, fairies, humans, not loaves. Animals. She's going to go 2 steps down on that great chain of being in terms of what she's going to fall in love with. Okay? Only she doesn't. We're going to see what she falls in love with is something in the middle. It's a human who's been transformed to have the head of an ass. Okay? So, they hear a noise. Demetrius and Helena come in. So Puck goes, and Puck told us, before he left, he would go around the world in 40 minutes. Give us an idea of his powers. All right? Demetrius and Helena come in. I love thee not, pursue me not. Where are Lysander and Hermia? No, he came looking for them. Get thee gone. She says, you draw me, you hard-hearted adamant. You draw me. What does that word draw mean? Pull me. The word draw, another little bit of etymology, is related to the word tractor. And they're actually related. One's German, one's Latin. They both mean to pull. Okay? When you draw something, what do? You are pulling a marker, a pen, ink, whatever, across a piece of paper. All right? So, she says, you pull me. How? Is he saying, come on, follow me, come on? No. It's his very being that attracts her. So, he says, 199, do I entice you? That is, am I saying, hey, Helena, come on over here, do I speak you fair? That is, do I speak nicely to you? Do not I, in plainest truth, tell you I do not nor cannot love you? She says, and even for that I love you the more. Why? Is she lovesick in the sense that she's had love and idleness put in her eyes? No. Again, it's just the fact that he exists draws her. Partially, why does she love him? What do we find out happened before the play began? He wooed her. He courted her. He sang songs to her. He wrote her things. He gave her things. He won her heart. To use the language that Aegeus uses about Lysander and Hermia, he bewitched her. Okay? She's fallen for him. Hook, line, and sinker. So, she comes down to so abase herself, she says, use me as your dog. Beat me. He says, I get sick when I look at you, and I'm sick when I don't look at you. He finishes. Well, kind of finishes. 2:14. You do impeach your modesty too much to leave the city and commit yourself into the hands of one that loves you not, to trust the opportunity of night and the ill counsel of desert place with the rich worth of your virginity. What has he just said? He said, Helena, damn, you are a fine-looking woman. You are sexy as all get out. And we're here and alone. And we're in the woods. And there's else around. Your virginity, to trust the opportunity of night with the rich worth of your virginity. You have put yourself in a precarious position. Now, we're told today you can never blame a woman for being raped. There are some women who say, what's her name? Chrissy Hynde, lead singer of the Pretenders, who said, because she had been raped, who said, yes, you can. If you're going into a bar full of a bunch of 20-year-old men full of testosterone, and you're wearing pretty much a bikini top and a thong, not a good thing to do. Why? Because it sets off, certain things, so to speak. He is saying, you have a lot more trust in me than you should. We're alone. I'm powerful. I can look at her response. Now, before we look at her response, is Demetrius actually suggesting he's going to rape her? No. He's saying he's put herself in a position where she could be. Okay? Look at her response. Your virtue is my privilege. You've got a gloss down there for privilege. My safeguard, my warrant. If I remember correctly, privilege actually means something like right of law. Your virtue is my legal right, she's saying. It is what defends me. She's saying, Demetrius, I would trust you if I were standing here stark naked, that you wouldn't touch me. Tells us what about Helena's opinion of Demetrius? This guy's good. He's up. He would, if that were the case, he's there, they're all alone, she's stark naked. Let's say she's dancing, gyrating, trying to entice him. What would he do? He'd take his cloak off and cover her up rather than take advantage. Okay? She says, it's not night when I see your face. Wherever you are, to me, is what? Daylight. I could never be in the dark when you're around. Okay? She's got it bad, right? I mean, all she looks at him when all she sees are two things: desire and goodness. Okay? I'll run from thee. And he does. Okay? So he runs and leaves. She runs after him. Oberon comes forth. Bear in mind, Oberon's been on the stage the whole time. When he first heard them make noise, he said, I am invisible. So that the audience knows now he's invisible. The people on the stage can't see him, even though the audience can. And directors can have a lot of fun with this, because they can have when Demetrius and Helena are talking, they can have Oberon walking right around them. Sometimes even I've seen this happen in between them, so that he's doing this in front of her face. And when she says this stuff about Demetrius, he's like, I understand now. Oberon comes forth. Puck returns. And he says, give me the flower. He knows where Titania is sleeping. He says what he's going to do. I'm going to go put the juice in her eyes. And then he says, oh, and by the way, there is a sweet Athenian lady in these woods, and as he puts it, a disdainful youth. Arrange it so that they fall asleep. Put the juice in his eyes so that when he wakes up, he will see her. What does he not tell Puck? Names. All he says, Athenian maid, Athenian youth. He says, you'll know him by the Athenian garments he has on. There's going to be a problem. Because who do we also know is in the wood? We haven't seen them yet, but they're going to show up very quickly. Lysander and Hermia, in other words, an Athenian maid and an Athenian youth. Okay? He says, I'll do it. Scene 2. Titania comes in with her fairies. They sing some songs. They lull her to sleep. Okay. Oberon comes in. He bends down, squeezes the juice of the flower in her eyes, and says, lines 33 and following, what thou seest when thou dost wake, do it for thy true love take. Love and languish for his sake. Languish. Waste yourself away for his love. Okay? Be it ounce or cat or bear, part or boar with bristled hair, in thy eye that shall appear when thou wakes, it is thy dear. Wake when some vile thing is near. Lysander and Hermia come in. They talk back and forth. So, Lysander says, we're lost. Let's stop for the night and camp. She says, okay, you find a bed. I'm going to sleep over here on this bank, like the bank of a stream. He says, one turf, 47 or so, one turf shall serve as pillow for us both. One heart, one bed, two bosoms, and one troth. No. Let's sleep together. Let's put our heads on the same piece of grass, sleep next to each other. Nay, good Lysander, for my sake, my dear, lie further off. Do not lie so near. He goes, no, you misunderstood me. Take the sense, sweet, of my innocence. Take the sense. Understand the innocence of my heart. Love takes the meaning in love's conference. And what he means by that is, if you really love me, you would know what my intentions are. This is not the kind of line like a guy sometimes uses. Well, if you really love me, you'd what? Sleep with me. It's not what he's saying. He says, I mean that my heart unto yours is knit, tied together, so that but one heart we can make of it. Two bosoms interchained with an oath. Chained, okay? So then two bosoms and a single troth. Troth means faith. Two hearts, one faith. That is, each heart thinks the same, feels the same toward the other. Then by your side no bedroom, that is space, me deny. For lying so, Hermia, I do not lie. That is, lying, reclined, I do not lie, tell a untruth. I don't mean anything else. He said, don't worry, I'm not going to get frisky, in the middle of the night. Lysander riddles very prettily. What's a riddle? It's a verbal word game. You're playing tricks with language. She says, now but beshrew my manners and my pride, if Hermia meant to say Lysander lied. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to imply that you lied. But gentle friend, and the word gentle doesn't just mean nice and tender. Gentle has a whole history of itself, or of its own. Has to do with honor, nobility, greatness of soul, right? Gentle friend, for love and courtesy lie further off. Courtesy, that refers to manners of the court, courtly, noble, proper behavior. Lie further off in human modesty. Why human modesty? It's what, line 64 or so. Courteous, perhaps suggesting humane. Yeah. I think there's more to it. Humanly modesty. In other words, I think she's implying, you're a young man, I'm a young woman, we're out here to get married. Human modesty says, prudence would suggest we should sleep farther apart. Why? Because we're young and we both desire each other. And it would be modest to separate a little bit. Such separation as may well be said becomes a virtuous bachelor and a maid. That is, well becomes, this kind of separation is what virtue suggests this is what's appropriate. So far be distant. Does she mean be very distant? No, she means so far, like you sleep over there, 6, 8 feet away, I'll sleep here. And good night, sweet friend, thy love ne'er alter till thy sweet life end. What does she mean, your love? His love, she says, thy love ne'er alter till thy sweet life end. His love for her. You watch a TV show or movie or whatever, and there's a wedding ceremony. What is the wedding ceremony? What's the last words of the vow, often? Till death do us part. That's what she's saying. Let your love never end till you die. Amen, amen to that fair prayer. He takes that as a prayer, and he says, so be, that's what amen means. So be it, so be it. And then end life when I end loyalty. My loyalty to you will die with my life. Okay? Puck comes in. We can already see the problem, right? Puck comes in. He's been told there's an Athenian youth and an Athenian maid. The Athenian youth is disdainful towards the maid. Put the juice in his eye so that when he wakes up, the next thing he will see will be that maid and he'll fall madly in love with her. He's already madly in love with her. Lysander with Hermia. Okay? He applies the juice, and in come Demetrius and Helena. So the juice gets applied in Lysander's eyes, who's already in love with Hermia. Hermia is asleep. Demetrius and Helena come in, yelling. Lysander wakes up. Helena is the first person he sees. And run through fire, line 109, I will for thy sweet sake, because Helena sees Lysander lying on the ground and goes and shakes him and wakes him up. First thing he sees. Transparent Helena, nature shows art. You know, transparent, your gloss, radiant, able to be seen through, lacking in deceit, etc. That through thy bosom makes me see thy heart. Where is Demetrius? Oh, how fit a word is that file name. Why? He remembers how Demetrius, okay, so he wakes up wildly in love with her. And first thing he thinks of is Demetrius. Why? He wants to defend Helena against Demetrius's false behavior towards her. How dare he treat Helena the way he's been treating her? He doesn't know about how he's been treating her in the woods, but back in Athens. Do not say so, Lysander, say not so. What though he love your Hermia? Lord, what though Hermia still loves you? Be content. Be happy with Hermia. Content with Hermia? No. Why? I repent the tedious minutes I have with her have spent. What's tedious mean? A job that's tedious. Louder?
Difficult.
Can be. Doesn't have to be. It means time wasting. I mean, just soul killing. It's just, it just eats up the time. No, not Hermia, but Helena I love. And there's the problem. Because now, he loves her, she loves him, he loves her, she loves him. They're all screwed up. Okay? How many lovers do we have? Theseus and Hippolyta, that's one. That was one. Okay? By the end of the play, Theseus and Hippolyta, these two, it's going to get fixed. They're going to be in love. So that's three. Okay? Titania and Oberon, theirs gets repaired in a spurious kind of way. There's going to be a fifth set of lovers. They've already been alluded to. The play within the play, Pyramus and Thisbe. So the play's all about love, ultimately. All right? So, Helena, after Lysander finishes his speech, Helena's first line, 129, in Act 2, Scene 2. Wherefore was I to this keen mockery born? What does she think Lysander's doing? Joking with her. She's become the object of a joke. And it's going to get to the point where this is what she thinks has happened. Lysander and Hermia told her about their running off to the wood because they knew she would tell Demetrius. And so Demetrius would come after them, and then Helena would come after Demetrius. And then what? And then the three of them together are going to play a joke, a practical joke on her. In other words, this was all kind of a setup. It's pretty low. That's a cruel practical joke, right? So she says, 138, I thought you, Lord, of more true gentleness. It's that same kind of gentle that Hermia used to talk about Lysander. Nobility, honor, virtue, good upbringing. She says, I thought you were better than this. Oh, that a lady of one man refused should of another therefore be abused. How dare you? You know how I feel for Demetrius and how he treats me. And now you're going to do this? He says, she doesn't see Hermia. Lysander knows Hermia's sleeping. Why doesn't Hermia wake up? She's exhausted. They apparently wandered for hours in the woods. Okay? Lysander only woke up because Helena shook him up. Okay? Helena is left. Lysander, she sees not Hermia. Hermia, sleep thou there, and never mayst thou come Lysander near. For as a surfeit of the sweetest things, the deepest loathing to the stomach brings, or as the heresies that men do leave are hated most of those they did deceive, so thou my surfeit and my heresy. A heresy is a belief in something false. A surfeit is, you've got a gloss. No, you don't have a gloss. A surfeit is like a stand-in. Okay? If you need caffeine, you know what? You can get kind of the real source of caffeine, coffee or Red Bull. It's a stand-in for it. Or you can get caffeine gum, so to speak. All right? He's saying, Hermia, you are what? You are a placeholder for my real love. And now he's discovered his real love, Helena. He leaves. Hermia wakes. Help me, Lysander, help me. Why? She's had a dream. What a dream was here. We've already heard the dream once, right? Hippolyta said, the days will dream away the night until our wedding. What a dream was here. Look how I quake with fear. She said, I thought a serpent ate my heart away. What would be the serpent there? It's an image of temptation, by the way. Who was tempted first? Garden of Eden. Eve. What's the serpent that tempted her heart, Lysander, away? Helena. Okay. And then she realizes she's all alone. Meanwhile, Titania sleeping on the stage. Titania is sleeping on the stage for the entire time until she wakes up and sees Bottom. So we come to Act 3, which we're going to stop here. Act 3, still in the wood, and we get these guys show up. Why? They're going to rehearse their play in the wood. They don't want anybody to see them. So we'll pick up there on, today's Thursday, on Tuesday. I think I've put up a quiz. I did? Okay. It's pretty much only about the first act and background stuff to Shakespeare. All right. Have a good weekend. It's still down.